In the summer of 2016, as the United States prepared for one of its most divisive presidential elections, a secret operation was initiated within the halls of the FBI. It was codenamed Crossfire Hurricane. Its mission: to investigate whether individuals associated with the Donald J. Trump campaign were coordinating with the Russian government to interfere in the election. For years, this investigation was the focal point of American political life. To some, it was a necessary shield against foreign subversion. To others, it represented a years-long coup and the weaponization of the justice system against a political opponent. Today, through thousands of pages of declassified reports from the Department of Justice, the Inspector General, and Special Counsel John Durham, we can finally look behind the curtain. What we find is a story of thin evidence, procedural failures, and deep-seated political bias. Did the FBI have a legitimate basis to open a full-scale investigation into a presidential campaign? Why did they rely on a dossier funded by the opposition party, even after their own sources called it rumor and bar talk? And why were exculpatory recordings, where campaign aides explicitly denied working with Russia, kept from the judges who authorized the spying? Over the next 7 minutes, we will break down the timeline, the 17 material errors found by the Inspector General, and the Clinton plan intelligence that suggested the entire narrative may have been a political strategy from the start. This is not just about one election. It is about the integrity of the institutions that define American democracy.
What if the official story you were told wasn't the only official story? For the better part of a decade now, the 2016 election has been put under a microscope, and it's generated thousands upon thousands of pages of government reports. But here's the crazy part. Instead of giving us one clear answer, they've left us with two powerful and totally contradictory official narratives. How is that even possible? Well, let's try to unravel this tale of two truths. To really get how we ended up with two competing versions of reality, you gotta follow the paper trail. It all kicks off in January 2017 with the intelligence community's assessment that Russia interfered to help Trump. That, of course, launched the Mueller report. But then, things got interesting. The investigators became the investigated. The DOJ's own Inspector General looked into the probe's origins, and then came the Durham report, which landed on a completely different conclusion. And just when he thought it was all over, a 2025 release from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the ODNI, basically turned the whole original narrative on its head. This timeline isn't just a list of dates, folks. It's a battleground of official reports. So, how are we going to piece this giant puzzle together? First, we'll head back to where it all started, the contested election. Then, we're going to explore narrative number one, that initial assessment of Russian interference. After that, we'll dive straight into narrative number two, the counter-investigation that pretty much challenged everything. From there, we'll see how the reviewers clashed over the original probe, which led to these huge accusations of a weaponized justice system. And finally, we're going to ask the big question. Where in the world does this fractured story leave all of us? Okay, so it all starts in the incredibly charged atmosphere right after the 2016 election. Before the new administration was even sworn in, the U.S. intelligence community dropped an absolute bombshell. And this one single assessment was so explosive, it would ignite years of political warfare and trigger this whole cascade of investigations that would eventually, believe it or not, turn inward and start targeting the investigators themselves. So this leads us right to that first official narrative. This is the story that absolutely dominated the headlines and launched the sprawling, years-long investigation into Russian interference. This assessment would become the very bedrock for everything that came after it, and it really defined the terms of the entire debate right from the get-go. This one sentence right here from the joint assessment by the CIA, the FBI, and the NSA, this became the foundation for everything. The key wasn't just that Russia interfered. It was that the intelligence community, with high confidence from the CIA and FBI, concluded that Russia actively wanted a certain candidate to win and worked to make it happen. That was the central explosive claim. And look, this finding didn't just stand on its own and get filed away. Oh no, it was put to the test. A major bipartisan review by the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence dug deep. They went through thousands of documents, interviewed everyone from the agency directors all the way down to the analysts on the ground. And their conclusion? It was striking. They found the original judgment was sound, and the analysts insisted they faced no politically motivated pressure whatsoever. But, and this is a huge but, that powerful, bipartisan-backed assessment is not the only official conclusion on the books. Not by a long shot. Years later, a competing narrative popped up from a counter-investigation, and it painted a picture that wasn't just a little different, it was the complete opposite. So then, in 2025, the Director of National Intelligence declassifies this report from the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, or HPSCI. And the language, it was just stunning. This wasn't some polite disagreement. It flat out called the original investigation a treasonous conspiracy designed from the very beginning to push a false narrative and sabotage a president. So this counter-narrative basically alleged the original assessment was a total sham. It argued Putin's main goal was just to sow chaos in the U.S., not to actually help a specific candidate. It accused the original assessment of leaving out significant intelligence that didn't fit its story. It pointed the finger directly at CIA Director Brennan, suggesting he was relying on sketchy sources like the now-debunked Steele Dossier. And it painted the whole thing as this really unusual, high-profile report ordered up by the president himself for political reasons. So stop and think about this. You now have two official government-sanctioned stories that are in direct opposition to each other. This pretty much forced a new wave of investigators to step in and, in a way, play referee. Their focus shifted away from Russia and onto the American investigators themselves. They zeroed in on the very beginning of the FBI's probe, codenamed Crossfire Hurricane, to answer one critical question. Was it even legitimate to begin with? And this, right here, just brilliantly illustrates the heart of the whole conflict. In 2019, the Department of Justice's own Inspector General concluded that, yes, the FBI did have a proper articulable factual basis to open the case. It met the required low threshold. But then, just a few years later, in 2023, Special Counsel John Durham concluded the exact opposite. He said the basis for the investigation was thin, that it was based on raw, unanalyzed intelligence, and that the whole thing was plagued by confirmation bias. But here's where it gets even more complicated. The very same Inspector General's report that said the investigation was properly started also found that the FBI's work was deeply, deeply flawed. It laid out at least 17 significant errors and omissions in the secret FISA applications they used to surveil Trump campaign advisor Carter Page. So this created a real paradox, a supposedly justified investigation that was executed with some major mistakes. The Durham report took that finding and just ran with it. Durham argued these weren't just sloppy mistakes or oversights. No, he concluded the FBI discounted or willfully ignored information that didn't fit their theory. And that, right there, shifts the accusation from simple incompetence to intentional bias, which is a far, far more serious charge to level against the nation's top law enforcement agency. So the fallout from all this constant back and forth is maybe the most damaging part of this whole saga. It's led to this dangerous erosion of public trust, and it's fueled accusations from all sides that the Department of Justice itself, the one institution that's supposed to be above politics, has been weaponized as a political tool. A perfect case study for this is the investigation into the former CIA director, John Brennan. I mean, as one of the main architects of that original 2017 intelligence assessment, he naturally became a key target in the effort to discredit the entire Russia probe. So while investigators were looking into Brennan, stories started to surface about intense political pressure coming from the top. The career prosecutor on the case, a woman named Maria Meditas Long, was suddenly removed. And the reason? Well, reports said she had been resisting pressure from top DOJ officials to speed things up, who allegedly told her superior that his timeline was simply not acceptable. And this is really the bottom line, isn't it? The system is now being accused of being weaponized by both sides. Critics of the Durham investigation call it a politically motivated witch hunt to retaliate against those who investigated Trump. At the exact same time, in 2025, the Justice Department launched yet another inquiry into the original Crossfire Hurricane team, accusing them of a treasonous conspiracy. It's like a perfect mirror image. Each side sees the other using the law as a political sword. So after all these years of investigations, after countless reports, endless political fighting, where do we actually stand? After all this, what is the final truth we're supposed to believe? Well, the end result isn't a clear, settled truth. Not even close. Instead, what we're left with is a series of completely contradictory official government conclusions. The very institutions we count on for objective facts, the FBI, the DOJ, the intelligence community, have produced reports that literally cancel each other out. And that has fueled a really profound crisis of institutional trust. This whole tangled web of investigations and counter-investigations leaves all of us with a really fundamental and frankly deeply unsettling question. It's not even just about what happened back in 2016 anymore. It forces us to ask, how can we trust the official story when there are two of them? And were the scales of justice truly